January of 1937, western Kansas. The temperature had been below zero for 11 straight days. My uncle's neighbor, a man named Howard Pritchard, walked out to his bee yard at dawn and found 8 hives dead silent, entrances sealed with frost. When he pried open the first lid, he found a cluster of 10,000 bees, stone cold, and above them, hanging from the inner cover, a sheet of ice, an inch thick. The bees hadn't frozen. They'd drowned in their own breath. Howard wasn't a scientist. He was a wheat farmer who kept bees to pay the mortgage when dust storms buried his crops. But that morning, sitting in the snow, he understood something the commercial beekeeping manuals never mentioned. Heat rises, moisture rises, and if you trap it, you kill the colony. What happened next between 1936 and 1939 across the Dust Bowl states was a quiet revolution. Men like Howard started building something simple, a chimney. Not for smoke, for breath. A top ventilation system that let moisture escape while keeping the cluster warm. They didn't write about it in journals. They showed each other over fence lines. And when they died, the method died with them. Because by the 1950s, the industry had moved on to sealed hives, bottom ventilation, foam insulation, modern systems that ignored one fundamental truth. The bees haven't changed. Only the industry has. Most beekeepers believe the enemy is cold. They wrap their hives in tar paper, plug entrance holes, seal every crack, and then in February they open the lid and find the same thing Howard found. A dead cluster, wet combs, ice on the inner cover. Here's what actually happens. A winter cluster generates heat. 20,000 bees vibrating their flight muscles can hold the core temperature at 93 degrees even when it's zero outside. That heat creates a thermal column. Warm air rises through the cluster, carrying moisture. Bee breath, evaporated honey, metabolic vapor. In a sealed hive, that moisture hits the cold inner cover and condenses instantly. Water droplets form, freeze, drip. They soak the top bars, chill the bees directly above the cluster. And once the cluster gets wet, thermoregulation collapses. The bees can't generate enough heat to dry themselves. They die, not from cold, but from moisture. Howard Pritchard figured this out by watching his chimney at home. Smoke rose, moisture rose, the flue draft carried it out. He applied the same principle to his hives. Here's what Howard built, and what I've used for 32 winters without losing a hive to moisture collapse. You start with the inner cover, standard 10-frame Langstroth. Instead of a small oval hole in the center, you cut a rectangular opening, 3 inches by 8 inches, positioned lengthwise, centered over the top bars. That's your chimney base. Take a piece of 1/2-inch hardware cloth, cut it to 4 inches by 9 inches. Fold the edges down 1/2 inch on all sides to create a raised screen. This sits over your rectangular opening. It prevents bees from building comb up into the chimney while allowing moisture vapor to pass. On top of that hardware cloth, you build the chimney box. I use scrap pine, 1x6 boards, cut 4 pieces, 2 at 10 inches tall, 2 at 8 inches tall. Assemble them into a rectangular tube that fits snugly around your inner cover opening. The inside dimensions should be roughly 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. At the top of the chimney, you need a louvered vent cap. I make mine from scrap plywood, 6 inches by 10 inches, with 3 1/2-inch holes drilled in a row. Set it at a 15-degree angle, sloping toward the back. This lets moisture vapor escape while preventing rain and snow from dropping straight down. Between the chimney box and the cap, you pack loose burlap. Not tight, loose, 2 or 3 layers, crumpled. This is your moisture buffer. As warm air rises, it passes through the burlap. Water vapor condenses on the fibers instead of on the bees. The burlap wicks it to the outside edges where it evaporates or freezes harmlessly. Every 4 weeks, you replace the burlap. You'll pull it out damp, sometimes frozen solid. That's moisture that didn't drip on your cluster. Now here's the piece most people get wrong. The entrance. You do not plug the bottom entrance. You reduce it. 1 inch wide, full length of the hive. This allows just enough airflow to feed the chimney draft. Cold air enters low, warms as it rises through the outer frame gaps, exits through the chimney. If you plug the entrance completely, you create a vacuum. If you leave it wide open, you lose the stack effect. 1 inch. That's the measurement Howard Pritchard settled on after 2 winters of trial. Install this system in late October, after the last nectar flow, before the first hard freeze. Wait until you see frost on the inner cover in the morning. Daytime temperatures in the low 50s, nighttime in the 30s. That's your signal. The cluster is forming. The queen has stopped laying. The bees are preparing for winter. You'll know it's working within 48 hours. Open the outer cover just an inch and feel the top of the chimney. It should be warm. Stick your finger into the burlap. It should be damp. That's condensation leaving the cluster instead of dripping on it. The most common mistakes: making the chimney too wide, packing the burlap too tight, installing too early while the queen is still laying, blocking the bottom entrance completely, or using a solid cap instead of a louvered vent. Howard Pritchard used to install his chimneys during a waning moon in late October. He said the bees were calmer, less defensive. I've followed that timing for 30 years and it holds true. You also want 3 days of clear, cold nights before installation, below freezing at night, above 40 during the day. This triggers final cluster formation. By mid-January, check the burlap once. Don't open the hive. Just lift the outer cover, pull the old burlap and replace it with fresh. Takes 30 seconds on a day above 35 degrees. Midday, no wind. Come March, when the maples bloom and the queen resumes laying. Remove the chimney completely. The colony needs full ventilation now. Store the chimney dry. Clean the burlap for next season. Here's what this costs. Scrap lumber, hardware cloth, remnants, old burlap feed sacks. If you buy everything new, maybe $8 per hive. Compare that to foam insulation wraps at $40 or commercial ventilation systems at $75. The Dust Bowl beekeepers built these systems because they had no choice. No money, no supply catalogs, just scrap materials and observation. And they saved their colonies when wealthier beekeepers with modern equipment lost everything. The simplest methods, the ones that cost almost nothing, often work better than expensive commercial solutions because they're based on biology, not marketing. The bees haven't changed. Only the industry has. In 1987, a university research team in Wisconsin tested top ventilation versus bottom ventilation. 40 hives. By March, the bottom ventilated hives had lost 18% of their winter population. The top ventilated hives had lost 7%. The study was published in a minor journal, never widely circulated. The commercial industry didn't adopt the findings, but the data was clear. Top ventilation works better. If you want to go deeper into these old methods, things like splitting by moon phase, rendering wax with solar heat, queen rearing without grafting, I've compiled everything into the Forbidden Beekeeping Manual. First link in the description below this video. Build one chimney. Put it on your weakest hive. Follow the measurements I gave you. Install it in late October during a waning moon. Check the burlap once in January. Then wait until March. When you open that hive in early spring and see a strong cluster on dry comb with no moisture damage, you'll understand what Howard Pritchard understood in 19. Howard's neighbor told me years later that Howard used to walk out to his bee yard every morning, even in January, even in a blizzard, just to look at his chimneys. He'd see the frost forming on the outside, see the slight warmth rising from the vent holes, and he'd nod to himself. He wasn't checking equipment. He was reading his bees. The chimney was just a tool to help them do what they've always done: survive winter by staying dry and warm. Next week, I'm going to show you another Dust Bowl era method. It's about swarm prevention using a technique called the checkerboard pattern that one Oklahoma beekeeper developed in 1941. It requires no extra equipment, costs nothing, and prevents swarming without splitting the hive. If you got value from this, share it with another beekeeper. And remember, everything I've learned over 43 years, all the old methods, all the forgotten techniques, they're in the Forbidden Beekeeping Manual. First link below. Until next week, keep your bees dry, keep them warm, and trust what your grandfather knew. The bees haven't changed. Only the industry has.